Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're still safe and sound so that we can proceed with the Introduction to Business Informatics course tutorials. And before talking about today's topic, I would like to refresh your memories with mentioning the main topics that we covered so far in the tutorials, so that you can have an outline in your mind on what we're doing in this course so far. So we covered things like the value chain, the IT infrastructure components, and the business intelligence, and the data warehouses and databases. And we also covered the ERD, or the Entity Relationship Diagram, and the last tutorial we actually started talking about some security issues and attacks that might be facing the enterprises or companies, and even on individual levels they might be a problem. So in today's topic we're going to actually talk about something that's called enterprise applications. And enterprise applications, the very simple understanding of this word could be any software that is not actually designed to be used by individuals or even small businesses. It is actually designed to be used by companies, and in a way that serves the complex operations that they are doing, and the many employees and the many customers and so on. So it's basically we're going to talk about the softwares that help companies operate or do their day-to-day business activities, or plan or do whatever is going to help them. So let's start and see what we have today. Okay, so as we said, the enterprise applications are meant to be serving the needs of the companies or the enterprises and not the individuals. However, different companies have different needs. For example, if we're having a company that provides services, it will have different needs than a company that manufactures its products. And according to these needs, the companies start selecting the best enterprise application that will serve or help in filling in the gaps that they have or achieving their goals and so on. So today and in our course or the lecture, we have three major enterprise applications that we're going to talk about and have an overview of today. So the first enterprise application that we're going to talk about today is enterprise systems, or simply enterprise resources planning, known as ERP. As for the second one, it will be supply chain management systems, known as SCM. And the last but not least, we're going to talk about Customer Relationship Management Systems, or CRM. I would like you to know the initialisms of the three enterprise applications, because normally later on when you start getting used or using these terms, you're not going to see the full naming more often, but however, you have to know what does CRM stands for, what does SCM stands for, and what does an ERP system stands for. It's pretty easy because you can just put the first letter of each word and they will form the initialism, so you don't have to really do much effort, and that's it. So as we said, companies sometimes might not be using any of these systems. Some other times they might be using some of these systems, and they also might use all of them at the same time, which is actually a function that's allowed by the enterprise suites. So according to each company's needs, we decide which enterprise application suits this company the best. So I would like to ask you that during the tutorial, one of the most important things to keep in mind is thinking when can each enterprise application be useful for which company. Okay, one last thing that I would like to talk about before moving on from this slide, and as we always do in each tutorial, I would like to tell you when exactly are you going to take these enterprise applications in details during your university studies in the GUC. So, first of all, you're going to take an enterprise systems course next year, next semester. So it's actually the very soon. And the course is actually called Enterprise Systems. And as for the SCM and CRM or Supply Chain Management Systems and Customer Relationship Management Systems, you are actually going to get into more details in semester 6. So yes, so again, I'm repeating, this is an introduction course. It's meant to tell you the basics of everything so that when you start taking the other courses, you will be feeling that you're familiar with whatever is happening around you. So by next semester, you should actually be familiar what does ERP mean, what does SCM mean, and what does CRM mean. Actually, not by next semester, it's actually by the end of this tutorial, hopefully. So let's start. Okay, before starting to discuss the enterprise applications that we have, let's go back to the times when we had no enterprise applications, we had no computers to run our businesses, and we had nothing except the paper. So imagine we're like, I don't know, like in much, much earlier time than the times we're in right now. So a typical business process back at this time would be like someone who's buying a new book, for example. This person will actually go to the sales department in order to start notifying them that he needs the book. So, and then the salesperson is going to start creating and updating some paperwork to notify the warehouse that there's a customer who needs a book. And then, after doing this, he will move to, sorry, I'm getting the pen. And then after doing this, after moving the papers from the sales to the warehouse, he is going to move from the warehouse to the accounting department in order to start preparing the invoices and receiving the payment. The problem about this is that during each phase we make a delay because we are preparing the paper, and there is another delay that happens in the time that the paper takes in order to reach each department. So this means that actually there is no integration between the different departments. You know, it's something like similar to the governmental processes that they start asking you whenever you go to finish something. I'm not sure if any of you tried this or not, but if you went to a place to finish like paperwork or governmental paperwork, they will start to ask you to take the paper and go to Madame Afif in the 9th floor or something like this, and the process takes forever. There is no integration between the departments. They have no access to each other's information, and like the paper might get lost in the process. Like we might get lost, another problem. So we actually have many problems, like it's time consuming, the orders might not be accurate, and the information communicated between the different departments might not be consistent as we discussed before. So we actually needed to find a solution for this in order to stop using paperwork in the businesses so that we can make the processes be more efficient. Okay, so we actually wanted to solve the problem of finishing the business tasks with paper because it caused many problems. So with the introduction of computers, we actually were able to design information systems that will be able to support the business processes. However, if we looked at this figure, we will find that it's written on it that it's a process supported by functional information systems. So what does the word functional means? Functional basically means a single department or function inside the organization. And the information systems are called functional information systems because each single information system is supporting a certain department. So this actually will help us solve some problems. If you started thinking about the problems that the new information systems might help us, or the new functional information systems might help us solve, we might think that they will help us avoid, for example, losing the papers. So because the information is now stored in the information system database, because each information system has its own database. Again, remember the tutorial that we talked about? So yes, each information systems has its own database. They are not connected by any means. So simply the new information systems or functional information systems helped us in having the information recorded, making things easier, and so on. However, now we still have the delay that if you want to communicate the information from one department to the other, you will still have some delays because the systems are not connected to each other, or the data stored in each system, as you can see, is not connected to each other. So we actually want these systems to be connected like this, so that we can enable the integration and sharing of data, so that we can provide visibility for the warehouse to see the orders made by the sales department, and be able to see, for example, how many books do I need to order? Is it 2, 3, or there are many customers, for example, ordering many books? And for the accounting departments to know how many orders were made by how many customers, so that they can start generating the invoices and receiving the payments from the customers. So the problem that still persists in this design is that the data stored in each information system is not integrated in one central database or a data repository. So now what we need to do, instead of doing paper or functional information systems that are separate from each other, as you can see, there's no connection, and accordingly there is no communication between different departments, so we needed further improvements in this design. So let's see what happened in the times afterwards. So now, again, we tried to solve the paperwork in the business processes by introducing different information systems with different databases that will help us in order to avoid generating papers in each department. However, this method didn't actually solve the problem of communication or collaboration between different departments. It didn't solve the problem of the data being consistent and visible by everyone at the same time, and so on. So, what did we do afterwards? We simply decided to create a single information system that will serve the whole enterprise or organization. And we called this system enterprise systems. So, an enterprise system is simply a system that serves different departments or functions across the organization. And that's why it's called cross-functional system, because it serves different departments inside the organization. And by this way, the introduction of enterprise systems inside the organization actually solved the majority of the problems that was facing the companies in the paperwork or the single information systems that are not connected to each other. So simply, the enterprise systems are the systems that serve all the departments and connect the data coming from all of these departments. I hope by this point you understand what this an enterprise system means. Now, as we talked about the history or the story behind the introduction of enterprise systems or enterprise resources planning or ERP systems, and we also mentioned what does ERP means in the lecture, I would like to go back to the lecture slides so that you can connect both what's said in the tutorial and lecture together. So we said that an enterprise system simply connects different departments in one database. So as you can see from this figure, an ERP connects simply the finance and accounting department, the human resources department, the manufacturing and production department, and finally the sales department, all together in one central database or one central data repository. So by this way, we provided integrated software modules in a central database. An integrated software modules, or the word modules, simply refers to one functional area in a business process, or you might as well understand it as one single department or function in the organization. So simply, an enterprise system feature a set of integrated software modules like the sales, marketing, and finance, accounting, human resources, and so on. These four departments together in a central database, as you can see, that enables data to be shared by different or by many different business processes and functional areas throughout the enterprise. I think by now everything written in the slides is pretty clear for you. You can imagine why do we have enterprise systems and why is it important for you to study it as a business informatics student. It's not just about this, there's many other benefits for you to know what does enterprise systems do. So as we said, the presence of enterprise systems or ERP systems inside the organizations is very important. Why? Because of the reasons mentioned in the lectures, such as the increase of operational efficiency, the rapid fulfillment of customer demand, and etc. So let's take the rapid fulfillment of customer demand as an example. Imagine that we have a customer, for example, who wants to buy milk, for example, from Johanna. Imagine that Johanna is not using an enterprise resources planning system that's not integrating all the departments together and notifying them with this order or how many orders does this customer want, and accordingly Johanna is not aware how many milk bottles they should actually start producing. So, when you went to the supermarket, you didn't find the Johanna milk. Will you actually wait till Johanna produces the milk and starts delivering it to the supermarket, or you will simply go to another option and buy different type of milk? So this is most probably what you're going to do. You're going to buy something else or a substitute that will satisfy your needs. So this will lead to customer loss if Johanna is not using an enterprise resources planning system. However, if the system is there, they will be able to fulfill the customer demand rapidly. And that's actually one very simple example of the problems that might be facing companies if they are not using systems that's integrating their functional processes inside the companies. Another thing that I would like to tell you about the ERP systems is that you don't only have to know it in order to be able to pass the exam and so on. However, knowing them will also help you later on when you start working, because there are some people who graduate and they start working in a company called SAP, which is basically the largest ERP software provider in the world. So the business informatics graduates normally starts working in SAP, and they might become specialists in some modules or functional areas inside this SAP software or the enterprise resources planning provided by SAP. They start providing consultancy for others or for the company itself in the modules of SAP. And later on, when you understand the software more in details, you will be able to do this very, very easily. Another thing, even if you're not interested in working in something like that, you will actually be required sometimes to be using such kind of softwares in some jobs. So even if you're working as a project manager, for example, you still have to be able to use the ERP system, for example, to put the employee's salary if you're an HR manager, or to generate a request for quotation, which is something that's done in companies even if you're not a specialist in SAP. So in general, without going into details, what I wanted to say is you might be specialized in SAP, but or in ERP systems. The SAP is the name of the company that provides the software. So you might be working in SAP as a specialist, or you might be working as any other role in any other company, but yet the company is using an enterprise resources planning system or SAP. For example, I was once in an internship in the British Council. It was in a department that's totally not related to IT, yet they were still requiring people to be able to use the SAP system that they are using. And they didn't even allow interns to be using this software because they think the seniors or the people who have more experience should be using it. But however, I told them that I studied it at university and I started using it. So you can actually start getting to know more about it just for your own information and to enhance your own CV. Okay, so that's it for the ERP or the Enterprise Resources Planning System. And I would like to end talking about this software by making you watch a video that explains what does an SAP do in a very simple and fun example. So let's watch.
What is SAP? SAP is the #1 ERP software that most Fortune 500 companies use to run their business. Let's take a look at an example. A customer buys an iPhone from Apple.com. The following things need to happen with this sale. The bank balance needs to go up. The iPhone available inventory needs to go down. The warehouse team needs to be notified which iPhone to pick and pack. The shipping department then needs to ship this to the customer. As you notice your inventory going down, the production planning team needs to manufacture more iPhones. They need to check with the inventory team if it has all the parts needed. If enough parts are not available, they need to buy them from a vendor. The purchasing department then goes through a few vendors and chooses one. These parts are then shipped to the team that makes the iPhone. The accounts payable department then pays these vendors. As the vendors are paid, our bank balance needs to go down. Once the phones are made and received in the warehouse, the available inventory needs to go up. As you can see, all the departments are interconnected. SAP keeps all these departments' information in sync and provides real-time information for a company to run its business. What would happen without an ERP software like SAP? Let's look at the same example. First issue, customers bought many iPhones, but our bank balance, due to the sales, didn't go up immediately. Due to this, our purchasing department wanted to buy iPhone parts in bulk to get a discount, but since our bank balance wasn't updated, they were unable to do so and had to buy a lower quantity at a higher price. With SAP, the purchasing department would have been in sync with the sales department and we would have made a more informed decision. Second issue, our inventory didn't go down with these sales and we were out of iPhones, but we continued selling them on our website and we only found out that we were out of stock when the warehouse team tried to find the iPhones to ship but didn't find any. We now have to cancel the customer's orders and refund their money. This will result in them being angry. Had we used SAP and got real-time information of our stock, we could have issued a message on our website that we were out of stock and also notified our manufacturing team to expedite the production of more iPhones. You get it. There are many more issues like these.
So the second enterprise application that we're going to talk about in this course or tutorial is simply the supply chain management systems, or the SCM as we said before. Let's first see what does a supply chain mean so that we can understand what does these kind of systems help with. So simply the supply chain management systems serve the supply chain, which is basically a network or an integrated processes for procurement or the process of acquiring or buying raw material, then manufacturing them in order to produce goods or products so that we can start the next step, which is simply distributing to the customer or the delivery to the customer. However, we have two types of supply chain: upstream supply chain and downstream supply chain. Upstream supply chain is simply concerned with anything involved in the process from acquiring the raw material until we reach the manufacturing process. So simply, as long as we have things coming inside the company, it's upstream. As for the downstream supply chain, it's anything or any process or anything that's involved in the process of delivering the product to the customer. So it starts after the manufacturing and then it continues until it reaches the customer. So this is called downstream. So simply, downstream is when the product starts coming outside of my company. So this is called downstream supply chain. And starting from acquiring the raw material until we reach the consumer, all of these processes is related to the supply chain management. So if we said that we have a system that's going to support the supply chain, it means that it will support the manufacturing process, support the acquiring of raw material, it will support the way we deliver to our customer, and so on. So let's see. The reason actually why do we need a system that will help us in supply chains in specific is that supply chain networks is usually complex, and as you can see, it involves many partners and many other people who are internal and external. For example, the employees manufacturing are internal, and the suppliers and customers are externals, and so on. So there are many people involved in this process, and we actually have many questions in head that we need a system or a systematic way that will answer these questions. For example, if I'm at the beginning of the month and I need to know what is the quantity that I need to produce this month so that I will not have a shortage and the customers will go to the competitors to buy from them, and so that I will not have extra products or surplus and increase my costs, such as the inventory costs or whatever, or producing products with expiry dates that I might not be able to sell them, and they will just be an additional cost. So we actually need a system that will integrate all those people together so that we can be able to plan and implement a good supply chain plan. Okay, so as we said, the ultimate goal of supply chain management is acquiring the raw material from the supplier, then manufacturing it, and finally distributing it or delivering it to the customer. However, the way companies start fulfilling the customer needs differ according to different supply chain models. What we have in the lecture is the push-based versus the pull-based supply chain models. So let's see what's the difference between both. In the push-based model, we start making forecasts or predictions about the quantity that might be ordered by the customer so that we can start manufacturing it. So the manufacturer actually starts getting the raw material from the supplier based on the forecasts. For example, if I said this month we are expecting that the customers will order 100 quantity, so I will get the raw material that's enough for 100 quantity, and then I will start manufacturing them and then distributing and then sending them to the retailers, and finally the customer will just go to the supermarket or the retailer and get whatever they want from the shelf. So the customer might actually, or the number of customers might actually buy the 100 quantity, but however, this might not be accurate. They might buy 50, and by this way you will be losing costs because you produced more than you need and you stored things and you made yourself pay more simply. Or you might be finding that the customers want something more than usual, so that they bought 150, and by this way you lost actually 50 customers or other people that might have started buying from you. So this is the push-based model. It simply starts by expecting what does the customer want and then start sending this to the customers. As for the pull-based model, it doesn't work like this. It actually starts when a customer says that he wants this order. So the process starts when the customer says, I want this order, so the customer order is made, and then he notifies the retailer, so the retailer starts taking from the distributor, and the distributor starts asking the manufacturer to produce more for the order, and the manufacturer will definitely get the raw materials needed to satisfy the initial request made by the customer. So simply, the major difference between push-based model and pull-based model is that the process starts by the customer, or it starts by just giving the customer what the customer wants. And as we said in the lecture, the difference can be highlighted in the slogan, make what we sell, not sell what we make. I've also added this picture to the slides because it's pretty much expressive to what's happening in the push versus the pull supply chain models. So as you can see in the push model, you're just producing just in case the customer needs these product. But for the pull model, you're just producing what the customer is actually needing. So that's the major difference between the two models. If you're feeling that you're confused and you can't really remember which one is the pull-based model and which one is the push-based model, you can actually remember them by saying that push because the company is pushing the product to the customer. However, the pull-based model is because the customer is pulling the product from the company. So it's actually as simple as that. And you will actually, if you're confused about the flow of the products and information, you can just think about this. So if we're thinking about the flow of information between the different models, you will find that it's actually different. For example, in the pull-based model, the first information that is generated by the customer when he's stating that he wants this product through the customer order. But as for the push-based model, the information flow doesn't work by this way. So you can actually start thinking about different scenarios of the flow of information and products between different entities inside the supply chain and start comparing between these two models. Okay, so in this slide, we're actually highlighting some of the benefits of the supply chain management systems, or the SCM. The first benefit that the SCM, or the supply chain management system, provides is that it helps companies to match their supply to demand. So again, the problem of supply chains, or the most important thing for supply chains, is knowing exactly how many or the quantity that the customer is going to order at a certain period. So for example, if the companies of medical masks knew that the coronavirus is coming, they would have produced many masks, but no one have expected this. So in supply chain management systems, or in normal situations, normally these systems has the ability to forecast automatically the quantity that we need to produce in the next period so that we can match the supply to demand. It can do this by different ways. For example, analyzing the quantities ordered in the past period so that it can suggest the quantity that we should produce in the next period, or the automatic reordering when the quantity at stock reaches a certain level, so that we can avoid the human-made errors and so on. So this is the first benefit. The second benefit is reducing the supply chain costs. Reducing the supply chain costs will happen by many ways. For example, if you know the quantity that you're going to produce, you don't have to produce extra, and you don't have to have extra inventory costs and so on. And finally, it helps improving the delivery service. And there are many benefits that are mentioned in the lectures, and you can also read about them in external sources and so on. However, in this tutorial, we will watch a video about the supply chain management system provided by the famous company Oracle, so that we can see what they are offering. The video doesn't have voice, it's just music and so on, so that you can have a little break. So let's see. The last enterprise application that we're going to talk about today is the Customer Relationship Management System, or simply the CRM. The CRM, or the Customer Relationship Management System, from its name, it's totally related to managing all the information coming from the company's interaction with current and potential customers. And if we're talking about companies' interaction with current and potential customers, these kinds of interaction can happen through three departments or functions inside any enterprise or organization. The first one is marketing, in order to be able to advertise and say more about my products, and sales, in order to be able to handle the sales that's coming from the customer and everything that's related to this, or anything that's related to selling the product to the customer. And finally, the customer service, in order to be able to handle any problems that might be facing the customers, such as having returns for the product and so on. Simply, the customer relationship management is the integration of information, or providing a single view for the customer uh, for all the aspects of sales, marketing, and customer service. So it's basically anything that's related to communicating with the customer. Okay, now as we talked about what does a customer relationship management system means, I would like to go through the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is the types of CRM, or customer relationship management systems. There are three types of CRM, which are basically operational customer relationship management, analytical customer relationship management, and finally collaborative customer relationship management. However, in the lecture slides, only two were mentioned, which are the operational and analytical CRM. I've chosen this slide because it shows the analytical CRM. The analytical CRM simply takes the data coming from the operational customer relationship management, or the customer data, and starts putting it in a customer data warehouse. If you remember from the past tutorials, we simply said that a data warehouse is a collection of data marts, and the data marts are serving different functions in the organization. So the warehouse is simply like a large database. Okay, so using some analysis tools such as OLAP, and again, from the past tutorials, if you remember, OLAP stands for Online Analytical Processing and Data Mining, or other data analysis tool. We use them in order to analyze the data generated, or collected, sorry, from the data generated from the operational systems. And then after the analysis, we start creating something that's called profitable customers, or market segments. For example, categorizing the customers based on their similarities. For example, making a segment for teenagers and so on. And creating customer profiles in order to be able to understand each customer on individual level, to include its name, address, birthday, whatever information that's useful for the company. And finally, reducing the producing the churn rates of the customer. Churn rates is simply the rate by which the customers are not using a certain product or a service anymore of a company. I will explain it to you better in the next slide, but for now, this is what we do when we analyze the data that we collected from different sources. And this process of analyzing the data collected in the warehouses from different data marts, and generating all of these outputs, is called analytical customer relationship management. Okay, Now, as we have mentioned that the customer relationship management systems, or the CRM, is helping companies to manage the interactions with the customers. These interactions can simply happen through three departments, which are marketing, sales, and customer service again. So, we also mentioned that through the analysis of the data collected from the three departments, we can actually start generating a useful information. For example, the churn rate, the customer profiles that includes many information or personal information about the customer and so on, as we mentioned in the previous slide. So we analyze the data using different tools and we start generating information, then we start having the benefit from the system. So the first benefit is reducing customer churn. And again, customer churn is simply the customers that stops buying a certain product from a company or using a certain service of a certain company as well. So one of the benefits of using the customer relationship management is reducing the customer churn. An example of this is Vodafone. So let's see what is a typical scenario that they might be doing. If we took Vodafone as an example for customer churn or reducing customer churn, so imagine if someone stopped using his SIM card, he stopped making phone calls for a long time. This information is actually stored on the systems of the company. For example, the system that's responsible for the sales. So by tracking this kind of information, the company might actually start automatically sending free megabytes, for example, or free minutes for this person to start using the service again. So by this way, the company is actually able to develop or reduce the churn rate inside the company. Another scenario about the Vodafone company would be that Vodafone might actually notice the pattern of the complaints that's made through the customer service center, and then by working on the most common problems made by the customers or the most common complaints, they might actually be able to improve their services and many other like benefits. By this way, they will increase the customer satisfaction and intimacy. Another example of the benefits of CRM is Uber. Imagine that you were using the service of Uber and then you bought a car and then all of a sudden you stopped using the service. Using this kind of information, the company can adjust the system to send promo codes for people who stop using the service for a certain period of time. By this way, they are keeping the customer or increasing the customer retention, which is basically the ability of a certain company to keep the customer for a certain period. The last example that we have is this company. They are simply sending 20% off. It's a discount, and they are writing, "We want to treat you for your birthday, but we don't know when that is. So why not today?" Most probably, those people, if they used a customer relationship management system and they created a user profile or a customer profile, they will be able to increase the customer satisfaction and intimacy with the company by sending discounts on the actual birthdays of the customers. So I'm not sure if you're dealing with something like this or not, but like some companies or send like greetings on your birthday and so on in order to improve the relationship between you and the company. So it also helps in effective marketing because we're able to do better market segmentation. For example, I can using the analysis, I can tell that most of the people that uses my product are teenagers. So in the next marketing campaign, I'm going to be targeting teenagers. And if you actually like the company, you're going to make calls, you're going to make more rides, you're going to buy from your favorite brand because you're getting a discount, and consequently the companies will increase their profits and revenue. So that's it for the customer relationship management. I hope it's clear, and I hope the other enterprise applications were clear as well. Okay, the last thing that I want to show you in this tutorial is the leading software providers of the enterprise applications, which are basically SAP and Oracle, and you can find many others if you Googled it, such as Microsoft and Salesforce and so on. Thank you so much for your time. I hope everything was clear, and if you have any confusion in anything, please feel free to email me or join the live session, whatever you're feeling comfortable with. Thank you.